with Dr. Majaz Moonis, and he needs no introduction. He's a prominent neurologist and a strokeologist in USA. And of course, I know him personally. He's a humble, jovial, and kind-hearted person. And not only he mesmerizes and attract the residents with his knowledge, but also with his, I know that his great singing also. Am I right, sir?
Well, less of that now, but still.
Yeah. So, sir, welcome to the talk show. And well, I will start with Dr. Majaz Moonis was born on 10th May in Lucknow. Sir, I would like to know about like how the journey from Lucknow to Delhi first.
So my mother was studying in Lucknow, and that's that's where I was born. But very soon, because Aligarh was the main hub of academics in those days, so my parents moved to Aligarh, where they both did their masters and developed the Center for Regional Studies and so on. And I spent a lot of time in Aligarh in a convent, believe it or not, where I was there till about the 7th grade, and then moved to Delhi, where my father was building the Jawaharlal Nehru University as the planning officer and rector. So I then stayed with my father there. My mother continued in Aligarh for a long time as a professor of biochemistry, and my father was, so that was my split childhood, from Aligarh and to Delhi. And I enjoyed both those cultures tremendously. They both gave me different opportunities, different ideas of growth. And then, of course, after that, I had, I wanted to do mathematics, believe it or not. That was my main area of interest. But I had a bet with my mother that if I get into medicine, then I will take it. And so I was watching Sholay. Sholay was a great movie of those days. So when the results came out, and my mother called me and said, the promise is a promise. So here I started my journey with medicine, which did not really excite me that much initially until I learned to understand neuroanatomy. And again, this was a very strange coincidence, but I was really bad at neuroanatomy. But I went to my mother's college for vacations in December, in the midterms. And I met one of the greatest teachers that I've ever seen in my life, who was a friend of my mother's and who taught me the basis of understanding neuroanatomy within 3 weeks. And I came back and everything became easy and it was just neuroanatomy became my love. And that the natural progression from there was to go towards, things that are structural, that you can localize, and then go on to neurology. And that's the initial part of the journey.
Sir, I heard that you were studying in New Delhi in a modern school during your secondary schooling, but I would like to know what was your memory of schools in Aligarh?
So schools in Aligarh were very different from modern school in the sense that it was a convent school where I was kept, in a different atmosphere, very open, grew up with people who, who were born at the same age, who grew up with me. And we had a small university town. So everybody would get together with each other in the evenings, in the days, nuns being nuns, they were really freaked out about my left-handedness. So they wanted me to change to right hand, handwriting. which I refused to do, and my parents supported me, thankfully. But it was great. I mean, Aligarh was a great experience. I played a lot of cricket there, a lot of table tennis, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Our school was about 6-7 miles away, and we used to bike to the school and sometimes have two people sitting on the front and back and take them to the school. Education was really not bad at all. Education was, but the only thing that they lacked was this sort of incentive to develop you, which is what I learned in modern school. Suddenly, modern school changed my approach towards learning.
Right. Sir, other than sports, you had one more passion of singing also. Can you comment upon that?
Yes, yes, I used to love singing, and especially the kind of songs that people don't want to hear. The songs that actually hit my nerve or chord were the sad songs, the melancholic sad songs of those days, and that's what I loved. And so people said, well, I mean, this is not, you want to hear more cheerful stuff, not. I said, okay, I sing for myself. I'm not singing for you, but that's okay.
That's true. Even your friends told that you used to sing absolutely different songs, but they used to really touch everybody's heart. So then finally, sir, you moved to New Delhi, and I would like to know some great memories of your modern school, sir.
So modern school was a big shock to me because, coming from a village, literally, Aligarh being a small university town, to New Delhi, of course, which was like moving to New York from, a village in the US, and then to the top school in Delhi. One school was rated the top school there at that point. And so the approach that people had was different. I was exposed to people, the kind of people that they were not my friends to start with, because I was a newcomer. My comfort zone was gone. I mean, my friends who grew up with me were all gone. They were all in Aligarh. So I developed some new friends, very few that were really long-lasting friends, but there were few. And one school had a different approach to learning, and certainly benefited me tremendously in terms of going with the flow, understanding more about. I mean, math was a natural thing for me; it wasn't a problem, but everything else was interesting. And one school also had a very interesting curriculum. They would teach till about 2 o'clock, and then 2 to 4, 2 hours was sports. So you could do whatever you wanted to do. You could laze around, you could play table tennis, you could do anything you wanted to. Those are 2 hours of, which is very unique to a school,
And
So
what
school
I
was
heard,
curriculum.
you used to be very good in cricket and table tennis, sir.
Yes, I was reasonably good at cricket and table tennis. Yes, I was very good.
Were you a batsman or a bowler?
I was an all-rounder. I used to do left arm spin, leg spin, and right, left arm leg spin, and I was a middle order batsman.
So it is great to know that Dr. Majaz Moonis, other than a neurologist and a strokeologist, I want to tell you, he's a good cricketer, good table tennis player, and of course, a good singer, which I will tell you later on as the show goes on. So, sir, I want to know there are two special memories of your secondary school. You have that. I would like to know from you.
From my secondary school. All right. So the one that I loved talking about was that because a friend of mine who I talked to you about earlier, who passed away recently. He and I were both in JNU, and we grew up together in JNU. His father was also in JNU, and I was. So we used to go to modern school together. And one of the things that was in S4, which is the 11th grade or the 10th grade, sorry, in those days, we were given a very tough exam in mathematics, where everybody except for a few people failed, and the boards were coming up, right? So it was a scam by the teachers who wanted to, scare you to death that you would fail the all India higher secondary boards unless you take tuition. And believe me or not, the only two people who did not take tuition was my friend who was no longer there and me. So the two of us did not take tuition. We said, no, I've looked at the papers. It's impossible that how can somebody fail these papers or not get good marks. So everybody else was scammed into taking 6 months of mathematics tuition, which they did not need. And when the results came, all India Higher Secondary results of mathematics, my friend was second on the list. I was sixth on the list, and I took great pleasure in taking it back to the teachers who had scammed us. And I said, sir, there's some justice to this, to what you were saying. It's not. So what you did was honestly not right.
Right.
So that was one of my interesting moments. And then, of course, Mont School had a NCC camp that we used to go to. So, I mean, we had a good time in the NCC camp. You were out in the hills and doing everything yourself and all that. So my seniors were very pleased with what I did. So they nominated me for next year's rank for in the NCC, whatever that means. And I didn't have a baritone voice, so this whole thing of I was asked to parade people up and down, and left turn, right turn, and all that stuff. And of course, I failed miserably. So I did not make the grade of being a thing.
Right, sir.
And I have, yeah.
And as you grow more older, you finish your secondary school by 1975, and by 1975 you joined college undergraduate in University of Delhi. But sir, I am really curious to know, you were really interested in mathematics, though you told me you understand neuroanatomy and everything, but how come biology there?
So to to keep it open, the pre-med was a requirement, right? To get into medicine. So you had to take that 1 year course, which I again took because my mother sort of wanted to, I'll tell you a very interesting story. When I was 6 years old, my sister and I would be dragged to the neuroanatomy, the dissection halls, and shown all the cadavers there in Aligarh. So that's how interested my mother was in getting me to be a doctor. It was her dream. So, and again, as I said, biology, I did okay in college, but my subjects were physics and mathematics that I enjoyed.
Right, sir. So, sir, during your college time, any special memory?
Yeah, there are some that cannot be shared, and there are some that can be shared.
Let's talk about the shared ones then.
Okay. So we had gone to, so in the class, my idea was that, if my teachers were sort of off, not teaching, not giving us the correct thing, I would get up and question it. And that became a huge nuisance for the physics teacher. And at the same time, it became a great hit with the class for some reason. That, well, somebody's out there to question things. And based on that, they thought I had some leadership qualities, so they made me the class representative, so to say. And we did a lot of interesting things, but it was, as I'm sure all of us do in college, but they're not memories
Correct.
that you can really.
And sir, when singing became your passion?
From school. And it's not that I took any training in singing or anything. It's just that, you hummed along with songs, and that's how you learn songs.
Because I have listened you during the Indian Academy of Neurology conferences, and even when we hosted a stroke conference in Amritsar, and you were the showstopper every time. And it's a fact, sir. Like your singing and the way you sing, the passion you have in that, it really stops the heart. Like they are really good. Anyhow, sir, moving
Thank you.
your college time to the MBBS time, as you did in UCMS in Delhi. So,
Yeah.
have you ever thought from the MBBS time you want to be a neurologist?
Yes, I mean, like I said, the first year of my neuroanatomy almost made me sure that I want to follow something that, because if you have mathematics in your mind, you want to follow something that is precise and localizable, right? I mean, that's what you want to do. The fascination was that I had the possibility of interacting with one of the DM fellows from the Indian Institute of Medical Sciences, who had just joined in the faculty of Surgeon. And so I did some part of my rotations with him. And it was fascinating how he could just sit there and say that that's a thalamic hemorrhage. I said, but you haven't seen the patient. He said, yeah, that's okay. It's a thalamic hemorrhage. It's a big one. And
Right.
so the fascination of localization in those days, and I think it still is very useful and very, very important, in spite of all the imaging that we have and all the sophistication we have. There are many, many instances where it is so important to be able to understand what's happening rather than looking at the image, because the image may not be congruent with what you're thinking.
Right, sir.
So that's how I've moved towards.
Then after finishing your MBBS, as you moved on, finally you joined AIMS. And like AIMS is everybody's dream.
True. So I did my MD from Maulana Azad.
Yeah.
And then of course, because I wanted to do neurology, and AIMS was the right place to do it. So I joined AIMS, and of course, suddenly it changed my whole style of thinking even further. I mean, all these UCMS, Maulana Azad taught me a lot of patient care, things. But and moving to Maulana Azad, of course, taught me a little bit of research methodology, not much, but some, because we had to do a presentation every PG had to do a couple of presentations and write up the thesis. So that taught you something. But then moving to the All Institute was a totally different experience. I mean, every mentor of mine, Dr. Maheshwari, Dr. Ahuja especially, I mean, made you think from the day one, as to, okay. And my father used to tell me that every patient is your patient. You can treat them but they also provide interesting research information that can be used to help the next patient. So build a database from the beginning on every patient that you see. And so that's what we did.
True, sir. So as you moved to AIMS, sir, who was your HOD at that time?
Dr. Maheshwari.
Right, sir.
And there were two units, Dr. Maheshwari and Dr. Ahuja had two different units. So with the very different styles of working. Both nice people, very nice people, but
Right, sir. So in AIMS, like everybody, like along with academics, people also have extracurricular activities. So I would like to know, sir, what were the most memorable moments in those 3 years in AIMS? Of course, like case studies and everything, being with residents is a something different thing. But other than the academics, sir.
So we used to have a lot of, Dr. Ahuja used to host a party every year. So they would invite, the couple would invite all the residents, and everything was, hair down, nothing, no formalities. Dr. Ahuja would himself serve the drinks and, everything else. So I remember a lot of good memories on those parties, a lot of singing, a lot of moving. And one interesting episode where we actually ended up little, I guess, little over. So we ended up in Rajasthan that night. And it was an interesting experience, The four of us, three other residents and me, we were in Rajasthan that night, and after the party, and then next morning, and we had to sleep with one of the in the heart of a what is it? One of the guys who drives carriages. So he had a small little hut. So we had no money, so we just went and slept in his hut. And he didn't even know about it. So next morning he got up and said, "Okay, thank you very much," and we drove back. So that was a very interesting. So we used to have these kind of interesting moments, a lot of them, which our teachers knew about, and they never actually, said anything bad. I mean, they honestly they said, "Fine, I mean, it's okay, part of life."
Definitely, sir. Along with academics, you need these types of boost ups also. And I would also
Correct.
like to do anything other than this during the AIMS tenure.
So right. So we had my main joy was to have a paper accepted. I mean, in presented in the Indian Academy of Neurology, one of the sessions. I think it was in Hyderabad, and Dr. Ashok Verma, who was my mentor for that particular paper. So we went there, stayed in a guest house. It was a beautiful thing. Dr. Maheshwari and Dr. Ahuja and Dr. Jan and I, four of us, stayed in I think my father arranged that place. So we had to take flip coins to who's going to sleep with Dr. Maheshwari. We had 2 bedrooms. So who was going to sleep with Dr. Maheshwari? Because we all were intimidated, who's going to take turns in Dr. Maheshwari's room. So finally, the toss, Dr. Verma lost the toss, and he and Dr. Maheshwari slept in one room, the most sedate. And Dr. Jain and I in a different. And, there was also midnight going out. My mother had sort of asked me to meet somebody. So I had to sneak out in the middle of the night to meet the princess of Hyderabad or something, the Nizam. So, nothing came out of it, of course, but that was it.
Lucky.
So there are a lot of these interesting memories. Yeah.
Right, sir. So when you got married, sir?
So I got it. again, I got married in 1990. Just when I finished my DM, and I asked Dr. Ahuja because I had gone to the US to present a paper, and then, of course, as you know, you meet a lot of different people, and I managed to meet Dr. Uh, uh, who did I meet there? Dr. Drachman, David Drachman, who was one of the originators of the Alzheimer's disease theory, and who impressed me a lot. So when I came back, he wrote to me that and I wanted to get out of the US after my fellowship because it was getting to be too much of a, everybody wanted an interview, this, that, etc. And I got tired of this. I said, I've just finished my exhausting DM, which is like keeping away for 48 hours at night and day. I mean, so from there to go back into residency and all that is not my cup of tea. So I wanted to get back. And the World Stroke Conference, I think, was in Delhi at that year. World Neurology Conference was in Delhi, and I was so happy to get back from the US that year. But then Dr. Drachman wrote to me, and I asked Dr. Ahuja. He said, for a year, it's not a bad thing to go to the US. Go and learn something more than where you are, and then come back. So that's how I was planning to go to the US. They asked me, do you have somebody you want to take with you because I was going on a J1 visa. I said, I'm going for a year. I don't, it doesn't matter what visa you give me. How does it matter? So, but still, who said, do you have a girlfriend, a wife, somebody you want to take with you? I said, no. And I didn't, I had friends, but they were not planning to go with me. So that was it. And then suddenly, out of the blue, this happened. So I got married in June.
Magic wine.
And yeah, I got married in June, and July 1st we were supposed to join.
Right. So probably Dr. Drachman was your inspiration that you got a fellow in neurology of aging and dementia in 1990.
Yes, correct.
Right.
And that's the reason. There were two people here, Dr. Daniel Pollan, who discovered the PS1 mutation, for the familial Alzheimer's disease, and and Dr. Drachman, who originated the theory of Alzheimer's disease. So it was a great experience to be with people, who are really giants in the field, and to learn from them.
Will you ever thought you will settle in USA?
It's a long story, but yeah, I didn't really. My interest always was going back to Ames or going back to, and I knew that I would probably end up getting a reasonably good job at Ames. It's not a problem, but it was, so there were a lot of circumstances that forced me to stay, and some of them were very personal. I mean, my wife wasn't well. She had refractory ITP, so I couldn't. IVIG was the only treatment and wasn't available in India at that point. Something that you take for granted now wasn't even available in India. And even Ames. Yeah. So in the meantime, my father went into respiratory failure, and he was in the institute for a year, not getting any better. So I said, okay, I'm going to leave my wife here, and then I'll go back to the institute and join the faculty there. So I took my interview, of course, and became an associate professor of neurophysiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, where I spent and I took a BiPAP machine with me from here. So for the first time, we tried BiPAP on my father. The people there didn't have a doctor, including Dr. Pant. They had no clue how to use a BiPAP machine. So I used to do it myself, along with my friends, Ramu and other people who were in cardiology. They used to come and help me, and we used to put him on a BiPAP during the day, and at night we would put him back on the ventilator. 3 or 4 months later, I think we also had, during that period, Dr. Bihari had conducted a movement disorder, a national workshop where I had my job was to teach people central EMG. So all the participants came, and we had different patterns for Parkinson's and for other things, spasticity, etc. That was cool, participating in that conference and teaching, etc. So I enjoyed that short period that I was there. But then I realized that father's not going to get any better here. So I decided that I'm going to take him on a BiPAP to the US. I called one of my friends. She was a respiratory therapist here in the US. And she came down. And then the two of us took my father. I didn't have the money to, buy 3 seats or 4 seats. So we just took him on a regular passenger seat, in the front bulkhead seat, sitting on these sides of him with a BiPAP in his throat. And we took him from here to London. And my brother-in-law had arranged an ambulance to transport us from Gatwick to the other airport, Heathrow. And there was an ambulance available to us there. And then from there, we came to the US. And my father, actually, they wouldn't let us in. I said, no, I've got a deal with the Majaz Moonis Hospital, and we're there for 4 months, and they will take care of him. So till about 3 months, everybody started saying, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I mean, he's not going to come off the ventilator. So what are the options? And suddenly I said, what's keeping him off the ventilator? He's strong. So I noticed that he had a lot of secretions. So the pulmonologist who was taking care of him, and I will never forget him, he was such a wonderful person. He was so open to ideas. I said, what if you gave him high-dose steroids for a short period of time? He'll dry out the secretions. Would that give him a chance of coming off the ventilator? He said, look, at this point, I'm willing to try anything you want. So he did give him high-dose steroids. And in a week, he was off the ventilator. In 2 weeks, we got him home. And so this is after a year and a half of, being on a ventilator-dependent situation. And after that, he stayed at home. I used to put him on a BiPAP at night. In the day, we used to plug his tracheostomy hole, and he lived a normal life. I mean, for at least a year and a half till he passed away.
That's a great hardship and personal struggle you had in your lifetime, sir. So now I have a quick fire round for you, sir.
Sure.
Well, your favorite color?
Blue.
Your 3 favorite songs? I know it's hard.
It's hard, right? But,
I know that.
Right. So, चलते चलते मेरे गीत याद रखना. 1. कोई होता जिसको अपना हम अपना कह लेते यारों.
Great. 3rd.
2. And I'm just going just what is coming to my mind is.
But just keep it in mind. You have to sing one song and the last. So be.
Okay. All right. So the third song was "Kya se kya ho gaya."
Right. Right. Your favorite movie till time now?
Hard to say.
Mm.
I mean, they've evolved into a lot of favorite movies. Guide was a great movie. But there are different genres, of movies. So, I mean, I enjoyed PK, which is, I think, the most philosophical, interesting movie that I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, I will put it more precise. Your favorite movie during your teenage time?
Diwar.
Okay, then your college time?
So we continue with the Rajesh Khanna. No, sorry, I take it back. my favorite was Rajesh Khanna, of course. And so I would see every one of his movies, and I especially did not like his sad movies. Most of his movies were sad movies, that he would have cancer or something and he would die.
But
Or something.
Anand was
So I
a
was
good
looking for.
movie, sir.
Anand was a good movie. Yeah, absolutely. I loved Anand.
Yeah.
And then as we got into college, Amitabh Bachchan came on the scene, and Diwar was one of the things, and Sholay.
You're right. I'm going to take one name, Dr. Mahipal Singh.
Dr. Mahipal Singh has been one of my closest and still is friend, who was with me from one school and is my friend, one of the closest friends even now. He always tried to push me in directions. So he came and pushed me and said, no, you got to do your DM in neurology at AIMS. No question about it. So that's the kind of person he is. He's a wonderful person, and so is his wife. And there's a story about him, but I won't tell that. But he was, he is still is. I mean, he's an entrepreneur, but also a great clinician, and has built up. Sorry, this one. So, and has built a huge center for sight, which has been his dream. Every year I go to India, I spend time with him. We have an evening where, he's there, and we have a couple of other friends. We get together and we have a great time. So Dr. Sajdev has a vision. He had a vision when he was a resident, and he followed it to the hilt and proved that he could, do it.
Your
very,
first,
very committed.
Your first experience with your first two-wheeler.
So my father had gone to the US for 6 months, and then he came back with some money, and I bought. He wouldn't let me buy a bike, so he gave me $500, and I got a Chetak. That was you could get it from foreign funds with $500. That was it. And of course, within a few weeks, I used to drive fast. I used to drive very fast. So somebody came in front of my scooter, and I braked, and next thing I knew I was picking up my scooter like 15 minutes later. And then I drove to the hospital with the same broken scooter, and that's where I collapsed. So, but we had a lot of fun with bikes and scooters. That's what we did. We used to get off in the evenings, and then end up in Shimla or some other place the next day, and spend a couple of days, come back.
So other than a scholar, you were a jovial and a fun-loving person too.
Totally.
Yeah. Your one of the memorable event when you saw a movie in a theater in India.
I think the movie that hit me most as a memorable event was Anand.
Anand. Right, sir. Okay. As you have already told that you one of your favorite actors is Rajesh Khanna, but still I would like to know other two people.
So Dilip Kumar and Amitabh Bachchan.
Amitabh Bachchan. Like, sir. Your favorite cuisine?
Okay. So I like Mughlai food, but I like the gravy. I don't eat meat. Interesting.
That's a secret.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's right.
Okay.
I love vegetables. I mean, like, so for me,
Right.
but if you ask me the favorite thing, I would say it's chaat.
It's chart. Great.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Dr. Vivek Adish.
A friend and somebody who has been with me from UCMS till now. And he's the fun-loving person too, which is why he's with me.
Right, sir. Uh, any any memorable event with your residents, or a memory with your residents?
So I just shared one of them with you, that we went from Dr. Ahuja's house to
No, sir, not as you a resident, as with your residents, as you are a director of stroke services in UMass Memorial Medical Center also.
right. So I always, I mean, and this is something that I always learned from my father, from Dr. Ahuja, from other people, that there's no high top-down stuff. You know, we're all friends. We all learn from each other. That's how I treat my residents, and my residents treat me. When I was a little younger, they used to call me my first name, and that was fine. There was no reason for them to address me as sir or doctor or this and that. So I wanted a free kind of a atmosphere, learning atmosphere, and I would perhaps I was one of the few people who used to take them all out for dinner after the month of rotation was over. So there was 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and we had a lot of fun inspiring them. So for them, and my style of teaching was different. That I would just teach on the sit-down rounds and ask and challenge them to a question, and the question proved interesting. I said, "You write a paper on this. This is your this is what you're going to do." So they did. They did. A lot of interesting papers came out of it because of discussions. And
Right.
yeah,
There is one more friend of yours, and you are very close to him, Dr. Narendra Gupta.
yes, Dr. Naren Gupta and I are literally brothers. I mean, he was my classmate at UCMS, and then in the last 2 years, because we were studying together, he moved to my house and very soon became a member of my family. So for him, my 4 sisters think of him as the same way as they would think of me, you know, and they're given the same regard and love. And we've had, again, Dr. Gupta was the entire opposite of me. I mean, he was fun loving in his own way, but he had his limits, and I didn't. So that led to a little few things where we said, okay, he wouldn't like what I, whatever. But I mean, I'm just saying that, he's a little more sober, but he is an extremely good friend and has a great sense of humor. And he used to have a bike, so I used to envy his bike. So even when my father became the vice chancellor in Delhi University, he moved in with me there as well. And so we used to, so in the morning I would get up early because I had to go to All India Institute of Medical Science. Delhi University to go to AIIMS is a long drive. So before he could wake up, I would take his bike and push off. So, and he would be left with the Chetak to drive the rest of the day. So in the evenings, it would just be, that it was, that's it. I mean, it was there. And he would say, Crib, why did you take my bike? I said, look, I had to drive fast. I had to look good. I mean, I was going to university. You're going 5 miles away to a nuclear medicine hospital. What's the point of taking a bike?
So I guess you have passions for bike. Do you have bike now also?
No, I don't. I mean, they'd kill me if I had a. I said I would happily trade my car for a bike because it's much more maneuverable. I can take it anywhere. I can get through traffic easily. I can do my daily style driving. But there's a big ban on that here. So here people use bikes as recreation. They don't use it for transport. Like I did, I use for everything. But here it is like gangs. So gang doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. In fact, Dr. Gupta was part of one of them. I mean, it's like a group of people who want to achieve something, go somewhere with very strict rules. No drugs, no smoking, no alcohol. I mean, they're very strict about this because these are not people who are going to hit people or, as you think about gangs. These are called bike gangs, but they're very normal people. And they actually go, they drive for 5, 7, 10 days, with good preparation and have fun, come back. And they build a group together.
Right, sir. So now we are coming to the end of the IN talk show. But before that, I would like to know, sir, who all are in your family and what they are doing.
So I have my mother who lives with me because she had a spinal fracture. So, I mean, I had to bring her here to get it fixed because nobody in India would fix it. So it was endoscopic correction. So she lives with me. She's fine. And my wife, who is going through a lot right now, but that's a different issue. And then my son, who lives in New York, he's 26 years old, and he's a quantitative finance person, very influenced by his mother because she is an actuary. So she does mathematical modeling, and that's what he does as quantitative finance for a law firm. Interesting job. They go after people in Wall Street who have done scams. So that's a law firm. So he builds models on how to, approach that. So kind of it's an interesting way to sort of. Otherwise, you could have been on Wall Street making money. I said, there's no point of that. If you're going to waste all your life from 5 in the morning till 9 at night, trying to make some money, it makes no sense. This is the best time of your life. Enjoy it.
Sir, I heard you have some book reading habits also.
Yeah, I love reading books.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to, in Aligarh, I had my own library of all the Westerns, Max Brand, etc., all those things. You probably haven't heard of them, but they were the Wild West Westerns, cowboy movie, books, etc.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I've read, that's what I do. I mean, when I get on a flight, I go to a bookstall, buy the latest book, and finish by the time I finish land. So 2 to 3 hours is what you need. You skip the boring part.
If you want to name your best 3 books till now.
My best 3 books. That's a hard one. But yeah, Anna Karenina, which starts out by saying every happy family is similar. Each unhappy family is unhappy in their own way. That's how the book starts. I'll never forget that.
Every happy family is similar, and each unhappy family
is unhappy in their own way.
Is unhappy. It's like in Punjabi.
In their own way.
Nanak Dukhiya Sab Sansar.
But Nanak Dukhiya Sab Sansar is like saying everybody's sad, right?
Yeah.
But this is saying that when you're happy, there is no distinction between families. Everybody's happy, it is when you are sad, when you have trouble, then you are troubled in different ways. Every family has its own troubles. It's not like the troubles are similar. Happiness is similar, but unhappiness is very individual.
Right. So now I'm going to show you the photograph, sir. And I guess this one first.
So this is a picture of 2007, I believe. My son was, of course, you can see a kid, and this was in Aligarh, where my mother-in-law, uh, you know, big. I mean, how they contributed a lot to the Aligarh Muslim University. Uh, in and Sir Sayyid Khan was related to them, so this is that house, and this is his birthday, 7th birthday. And you can see my mother in the background, and my wife, and my son.
Right. Now the second pic.
I don't see the second one.
I can
Oh,
see
there.
Dr. Padma there.
Right. She's in the center. My mother said, this was not too far back in time. This was 3 years ago, before COVID. So the Dr. Padma is in the center. Her husband is to the left. And then a friend of my brother-in-law's elder brother, who was a very good friend of mine in Delhi, Abdullah Bhai, he is sitting next to my mother, and he also died of COVID. Very, very sad.
Right.
And then his wife is on the other side, and there's another couple. So this was a very nice evening with all of these people.
Right. So these were the only two photographs which I had. And now coming to the end, sir, I know you are a great singer. I have heard you many times. So for the friends and people, just few lines for us.
All right. चलते चलते मेरे ये गीत याद रखना, कभी अलविदा ना कहना, कभी अलविदा ना कहना, रोते हंसते तब यूं ही तुम गुनगुनाते रहना, कभी अलविदा ना कहना, कभी अलविदा ना कहना.
Thank you, sir. So taking a note of that, Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, and we'll be always meeting. Though nowadays there is virtual, but soon we will be meeting soon. Not saying Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna. Sir, a last message for young neurologists like me and other people.
So understand disease and not read, just don't be comprehensive when you look at a patient. I mean, it's not just, so the example that I would give is when somebody comes with a recurrent stroke, it is not a failure of aspirin. It is a problem that you have to look holistically. Is his diabetes out of control, which is what caused this? Is his blood pressure out of control? And did he not take his aspirin? But to simply launch onto this, that like you got blind shields, that okay, as he gave me aspirin, it didn't work. Now we should change the aspirin to Plavix and it'll work. That's the wrong approach. Comprehensive understanding of each patient takes a little longer, but gives you the best thoughts. And always read an original textbook. There's no substitute for that. Honestly, if there's no practice-based medicine takes you to the next step. But unless you don't have the foundation of a solid reading, which in India thankfully still has, I hope it still persists.
It is.
Because here it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. Nobody's read Adams here. So when you ask them to read a chapter on Adams, say, what? I mean, so that's what I mean. That's a little
right, sir.
Little different, and that's why.
Right, sir. Thank you. So here we come to the end. And so we had Dr. Majaz Moonis with us, the great neurologist and strokeologist in USA. And though all his roots from India, we had a very nice talk to you. And we really are enlightened by your personal things, personal academic things along with your personal life. So that means that not only academics matter, but also matters is your roots, also matters is your knowledge and your inspirations and your friends. And even it was a great opportunity given by Dr. Nirmal Surya, the IN president, who has made this show a great success, which helps the young neurologists to experience and understand the hardships which a senior neurologist at present who is like a, he has given to us. Similarly, I'm enlightened by Dr. Majaz Moonis today. Thank you, sir, for coming to the talk show and give sparing the time.
Can I add one more line?
Yes, sir.
So do you know that you asked me interesting stories, but just one last part. I forgot to mention Dr. Subhash Paul and I met in a meeting where he asked me, does TPA work? And we persisted, and we had a meeting in India, in Hyderabad, on that particular topic. And honestly, we had 300 people come to that meeting, and which led to the foundation of the Indian Stroke Association. So I just wanted to wish Dr. Kaul well, and his immense contribution. If he had not persisted with that meeting, I think the ISA would have happened at some point, regardless. But it just happened to have happened at that point when our discuss. So sometimes table discussions take you a long place,
True,
It
sir.
was just a discussion, simple question he asked me, and I said, of course it works. And he said, prove it. I said, okay, in a meeting. And I did not know him at that point.
Right, sir.
He's a great singer, by the way.
Yeah, I know that he's a great neurologist of India and a very great singer. And he even tells, I have listened his lectures also. The way he presents his lectures is with music, with singing. He correlates neurology with singing, and that is the best part in him. Right, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. All the best, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Bye.